small little cozy group today, right? So welcome. So our session today that we're going to be doing is about motivation, getting motivated, achieving your goals. I hope you enjoyed your opening ceremony of Destination College. I'm happy to be here. I'm glad that you are all here. My name is Horacio Rodriguez. I'm trained as a clinical social worker. I'm currently working as a school social worker at Apex Academy. So let's start out talking about kind of where we are right now, right? So most of us are in person and we're trying to adjust to something that's normal, except for Judy, she's homeschooling, which I don't know if that's what you were doing before, but I think everybody's kind of adjusting. And for many people, the pandemic was traumatic, and it still continues to be traumatic for some people. And we're expected to kind of get back to this quote unquote normal. And so after about a year and a half of distance learning, we're all trying to readjust, trying to do this thing, but we're wearing masks, or we're homeschooling, or we're being told to stay not too close to people and that sort of thing. So it is a big adjustment at the very least. So what I want to do right now is just kind of check in and see how is everybody doing with just starting school back up. Awesome. Yeah. And I really love this wheel too, because it helps you come up with different ways of just kind of maybe naming what you might feel. So like, for example, under the happy, you see all these different ones that might be a little bit more detailed and connect with more what you're feeling. So for example, might be feeling happy, but then I can look at, maybe I'm feeling proud. And if I go follow proud, maybe actually I'm feeling really. So it really kind of expands our vocabulary and really connects to what we might be feeling. So I really love this wheel. Okay, so it was the first document you had trouble with. Let me see. So the link should ask you to make a copy of it. So when you click on it, it's going to say make a copy. So then that way you can jot down any notes that you want for yourself. So when you click on it, you should see a little link that says make a copy. So hopefully everyone's able to access that. Let me know if you're not. So as you look at the wheel, see at what feelings might connect with you. Which ones resonate with you? I'm going to go from the fearful part of the feelings wheel. And if I go out a little bit more, I'm going to say anxious, because I've been feeling kind of fearful and anxious just about returning back and getting sick. And, you know, I have family members, young ones and old ones, and getting them sick. So there's this kind of like underlying fear, but I'm also, if I go into the happy, I'm just kind of excited, glad to be back, glad to see the students. And as I was sharing, I think we're all kind of feeling some sort of version of that. And the good thing is that you're not alone. And I want you to know that you're not stuck in those feelings. What I did see from your comments in the chat is many of you put in kind of two different types of feelings. One that might seem a little more negative and something that might seem more positive, which I think is super healthy because you're able to see kind of the both feelings that might come up with our situation here. What I wanted to share too is that we can find hope in something that's called neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity is the ability for your brain to change and adapt. Have any of you heard of this word neuroplasticity? And if I could even say the word neuroplasticity, sometimes it's really hard. You heard it on TV and the news. Yeah. So the name is kind of familiar, right? So before I go into kind of what that means and go into a little more detail on what that means, it reminds me of this story of the two wolves. And I don't know if any of you have heard the story of the two wolves. But I want to share that. There's a bunch of different versions online. I've heard a bunch of different versions. So I'm going to share one, the most popular one that I connected with. So the way it starts out is, so one evening there's an old Cherokee grandfather who's with his grandson, and he's just kind of teaching him about life. And he talks about this battle that's going on inside of people. And he says, my son, the battle is between two wolves inside of all of us. One is evil, is anger, envy, jealousy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, and ego. But the other is good. It is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, empathy, benevolence, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. And then the grandson was kind of taking it all in, thought about it for a minute, and then he asked his grandfather, so which wolf wins? And the grandfather just replies, the one that you feed. So to me, that seemed powerful because it talks about just what you put your attention to becomes stronger. So he talked about the two wolves, right? So if you feed this one that is more of these kind of negative feelings, that one becomes stronger. But the opposite is true. If you feed the one that represents more of these positive feelings inside of you, then that's the one that will win. So that kind of goes into what actually is happening in your brain. So which is called neuroplasticity. On my screen, can you all see the video there? And then I'm going to play it. And it's going to show a little bit about kind of how neuroplasticity works in your brain. And think about, as you're watching this video, think about how it connects with the story of the two wolves that I shared with you. So it's not too long, it's a couple of minutes. Can you all hear it?
I can't hear it, can see it though.
Okay. So I might have to share my sound. Give me 1 second. I thought I had my sound shared.
And you guys, we've got stuff to give away. We've got prizes for you. So the more that you participate in the chat and things, then you have, we'll make sure that you win a prize. So we definitely want you to be participating.
All right. Thank you for your patience. Let's try that again.
Not so long ago, many scientists believed that the brain did not change after childhood, that it was hardwired and fixed by the time we became adults. But recent advances in only the last decade now tell us that this is simply not true. The brain can and does change throughout our lives. It is adaptable, like plastic. Hence, neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. How does neuroplasticity work? If you think of your brain as a dynamic, connected power grid, there are billions of pathways or roads lighting up every time you think, feel, or do something. Some of these roads are well-traveled. These are our habits, our established ways of thinking, feeling, and doing. Every time we think in a certain way, practice a particular task, or feel a specific emotion, we strengthen this road. It becomes easier for our brains to travel this pathway. Say we think about something differently, learn a new task, or choose a different emotion. We start carving out a new road. If we keep traveling that road, our brains begin to use this pathway more, and this new way of thinking, feeling, or doing becomes second nature. The old pathway gets used less and weakens. This process of rewiring your brain by forming new connections and weakening old ones is neuroplasticity in action. The good news is that we all have the ability to learn and change by rewiring our brains. If you have ever changed a bad habit or thought about something differently, you have carved a new pathway in your brain and experienced neuroplasticity firsthand. With repeated and directed attention towards your desired change, you can rewire your brain.
So I want to hear from you all. Put in the chat just kind of what are your initial thoughts about this, your feelings about this, and how it may connect to the story of the two wolves. Yeah, and yes, Judy, it's kind of like plasticity, like plastic, where it's able to be molded. So what comes up for you all? Any comments? Awesome. Yes, not too late to change. I love that. And Joanne, that makes me feel hopeful, like it's not too late to change. It makes me think of mom, negative sometimes. I want to be able to change that. Yeah, and just kind of how Joanne was saying, it's not too late to change that. Your brain can learn to do new things, can adapt and change. Yes, amazing, awesome. So I want to share this. Neurons that fire together, wire together. So in other words, repeated behavior, whether it's positive or negative, your brain really doesn't have the sensor for that. It can't tell if it's not negative or positive. It just knows that it's repeated. That gets wired into our brain and it becomes more likely to be triggered in the future, right? So it's kind of like the pathways become large freeways. And the amazing thing about that too is what you start to use less also starts to dwindle away. So your brain uses those roadways less and uses the ones that are being created like giant freeways more. So what I want to practice right now is being able to pay attention to the positive or pay attention to what is going well. So there's a couple of questions or 4 questions that I have for you all. You can put this in the chat, but also what I would like to do is in your student companion slides that I put in the chat, I want you to take a look at that. There's space for you to add your comments and your thoughts to these questions. So let's all sit for a minute and think about what is going well. What are your strengths? What brings you hope right now? And what are you grateful for? I do want to say, as we think about sometimes like where our thoughts go, do they go to some place that's negative or some place that's positive? So there's some comments in the chat that I want to address. And I think that, yeah, it does really come up with what our experience is. So if our experience has been struggle and has been difficult, there is a tendency to think negative. And also as we think about as humans, as we've evolved, our brains are wired, our default is really to think negative. Because if we think way back when we were first evolving and we don't really have shelter as we have now, buildings and that sort of thing, we had to be fearful and worried about threats like a bear or a large animal coming to attack us. So that's what kept us safe. So that's been in our evolution as humans. So it really does take a bit of practice and some work to think positive. So I do want to put that out there that sometimes it is hard to think positive, but the power of the brain then tells us that as you do it more, the stronger it becomes. And what we'll talk about a little bit more is, those little small steps matter. So even thinking about what you're grateful for, even though you don't know what it is, you don't come up with what it is, just the act of thinking about it starts to light up those neurons in your brain, and those begin to wire. And as you do it more, then those become stronger. So I want to put that out there. So even the thought of just thinking about what you're grateful for, we can think about what your strengths are, that is amazing. And that's already starting to prime those pieces in your brain. Okay. So as we think about our mindset and priming that to think more positive, but also how does this connect with motivation, right? And I think the way it connects with motivation is that it gets us started in becoming a little bit more, boosting our mood, just thinking about what is going well. And then what I want to shift now into is thinking about our why. So a lot of great leaders who have talked about motivation and success, they always talk about this why. When we think about goals, I think we are really good at thinking about the how or what we're going to do, but sometimes we miss that why. And the why could be really a grounding piece for us as we think about what motivates us. So I want you to take some time and think about your why. Why do you do things? Why do you go to school? Why do you want to be successful? This is kind of in a lens of academics, but you can also think about in your own family. So why do you do things with your family? Why do you do things with your friends? What is your why? What is your purpose? What kind of person do you want to be? So let's take a moment to do that. What I want to do next is, as we're thinking about our why, feeling and thinking about what comes up for us, I want to lead us into just a quick little exercise of being mindful. So if you haven't heard of what mindfulness is or being mindful, just simply means paying attention. And that's really hard for being, as a human, is really hard to pay attention to one thing. So I'm going to lead you into this kind of practice. What we're going to do is try to focus on our breath, or you can try to focus in one object. If your mind starts going somewhere else, totally normal, because that's what your brain does. Just bring your attention back to whatever your object of attention is without judgment, and then just start over. So what I'm going to ask you to do is close your eyes if you feel comfortable. If you don't feel comfortable closing your eyes, try to find an object in your room and just kind of relax your gaze and just focus on that object. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to do a couple of deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. And as you're paying attention, as you're breathing, pay attention to how it feels when you inhale through your nose. How does it feel when you exhale through your mouth? Where do you feel it in your body? Inhale again. Exhale again. One last time, take an inhale through your nose. This time, try to make it slow and long. Exhale through your mouth. And those thoughts that you had about your why, see if you can connect with that. What does that feel like? Where do you feel it in your body? Are there any sensations that come up? Do you feel warm? Do you feel it in your chest, in your belly, in your head? Does it feel good when you connect with your why? Does it boost you a little bit? Does it give you a little bit of motivation? Does it push you? Does it kick you a little bit? Okay, so keep that in mind and come back to the screen, and we're going to move on to our next piece. So keep your why. So let's tap into your why. So I have some questions here for you all. Again, in that document, there's some space to start jotting down this information. So let's think about, what things do you value? So in the chat, I'm going to put in, or Ms. Livingston, if you can put in the things you might value document.
Sure thing.
Thank you. And this is a large document with a bunch of values. So it might be overwhelming, but just take a minute to look at it. See if any of those resonate with you, connect with you. And see if you can dwindle it down to maybe 10 at first. And then out of those 10, see if you can pick 3 to 5. And that list on there is not an exhaustive list. So if there's some values or things that are important to you that are not on that list, you can jot that down as well. So take a minute to think about, what things do you value? What is important to you? And then take some time to think about what inspires you, what pushes you. Is there anybody who inspires you in your family, a celebrity, someone who's famous? What do you look forward to? What adds fuel to your gas tank? And jot those down. So as you all are jotting some stuff down, I can share a bit about what my why is and what I connect with. So my why comes from my experience growing up. So I grew up in an area where it's kind of a rough area. There's a lot of gangs. And so school wasn't really a thing that people talked about or people did. But in high school, there's this one counselor who connected with me. And I think what really shifted the way I thought is this counselor did not ask, are you going to college? But they asked, what college are you going to? So for me, in thinking about that way, it kind of shifted my mind, not just as, am I going, but, oh, I am going, this is a possibility. and where am I going? So for me, it shifted and opened that up for me, that this was possible for me. And so that's my why, is being able to connect with youth, being able to help them, being able to shift that mindset. And so that's kind of what has gotten me and pushed me into the field that I've gotten to, which is clinical social work. And now with a family of my own, now I've added them as my why. So my kids, my wife, what I do is for them, and I use that as a grounding to kind of connect back. When I'm feeling unmotivated, I think about my beginning why and then my why now, which is my family. And as I think about this, I also think about what we learned about neuroplasticity. So as even those small little wins start to build that pathway into your brain, right? So the more you do that, the more you repeat it, the more you build habits, the stronger that's going to become. And so that's why I think, yeah, that journey is important. The pursuit of your goals is really important. And Nayeli says, the journey is important and valuable and can teach you important things that can help you later in life. Yes, amazing. Yeah, you grow from that journey. You grow from that pursuit. Awesome. Thank you all for sharing. So as we talk about goals and motivated to achieve goals, I want to introduce two types of goals, and then we're going to work on one of them. So there are many different types of goals, and they can kind of differ in how long your involvement is needed to achieve that goal. So thinking about these two types of goals, there's the end state goals. So that's a type of goal that once you achieve it, there's no further action is required. So for example, entering a pie eating contest, if that's your goal, once you enter it, you're done, right? There's no other further action needed about that. Or winning an art contest. If you win the art contest, there's no other actions after that. Another type of goal is a process goal. And this type of goal requires continuous action. So for example, staying healthy, right? So once you reach being healthy, then you have to keep continually doing actions so that you can stay healthy, or staying motivated, right? That is something that you always have to be doing something towards it to achieve that. Or even maintaining a GPA that you want, a 4.0 or a 3.0, right? If your goal is to have a 3.0, you still have to do some actions to keep that. So Ms. Livingston, do you have any examples, other examples of what a process goal might be?
I think it requires continuous action. So like, yes, so one of my process goals is I want to feel less tired, right? So I want to have more energy in my day. And so the things that I need to do to help myself with that is like, making sure that I have a decent bedtime and turning off my phone a half hour before I want to fall asleep so that I don't have the blue light and, things like that. Is that right? Am I in the right zone?
Yeah, you're in the right zone. And kind of what I'm hearing you say is that sometimes it can feel like it's a lot, right? There's just a lot of pieces to do that.
For sure. And then sometimes when I don't do it, then I feel bad and I like talk to myself badly and am hard on myself, or I just give up. And it's like, okay, wait, no, don't give up, like start again. Maybe I did it for a couple of days and then I have one bad night or 2 nights and then I'm like, oh, well, forget it. I've blown it. So I'll just let it, so it's kind of getting back on track also.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, because that is when we have these long-lasting goals or these bigger goals that are kind of more these process goals. Yeah, we're going to mess up, we're going to fail. And I think we all have the tendency, or a lot of us have the tendency to kind of go to a negative place. That's kind of how Ms. Livingston's saying, like, oh, I messed up. But it's really important, kind of how you're saying, to come back to that. And as we're talking about those small pieces, just paying attention to the pieces that were successful. So maybe you were able to kind of use less blue light that night, but maybe you messed up on something else, but you were able to achieve that one. So paying attention to those small wins. So another to clarify a little bit more of kind of process goals is sometimes we have goals that we set them as an end goal. I mean, an end state goal. But it may be more beneficial to set it as a process goal. So for example, a goal maybe to lose 15 pounds. So you lose a 15 pounds, but then maybe the goal is not to gain them back, right? It's to keep them off. So it actually is more of a process goal. The goal is to keep that healthy body weight. Or my goal is to go to college. How can we reframe that to a process goal? So if that, the end goal of my goal is to go to college, how would we make it into a process goal? Okay. So I want to go over these 4 steps fairly quickly. I'm sorry that we've kind of run out of time. So step 1 would be select your goal. And I would really have you think about, how does this align with your why that we talked about earlier? Step 2 would be to choose an action and thinking about what repeated action would help to reach that goal. And step 3, what is the how? What approach are you going to take? And then step 4 is make the commitment to yourself and just start. So some tips in thinking about the goal is, what is, pick one for now, like maybe a goal that seems to be a game changer. What I mean by game changer is one goal that might impact a bunch of different areas in your life. So maybe if I feel like I want to do better in school, but sometimes I feel like I'm tired, maybe one of my game changer is going to be maybe to get better sleep. So I want us to get 8 hours of sleep, and that might impact my focus, and might impact my work completion, that sort of thing. So think about maybe a goal that can impact a bunch of different areas. And then try to formulate that as a process goal, right? So you can use kind of this sentence starter. My goal is to keep or to maintain. So you're gonna write that goal down. So there are some tips about that. For step 2, some tips are, think about what kind of actions, if you repeated this action, would build into a habit that would help you achieve this goal. So for now, it's okay to write some potential actions, make a list, and then in the next step, you can select what action that would be. Okay, so step 3, select the how. So there's many different approaches. I just want to highlight 2 of them. One of them is gradual change. That means you start small and you just build that habit up to what you build up to what you want to create. So for example, if you want to, your goal is to run for 40 minutes. Maybe you start out with 10 minutes 1 week. The next week you up it 5 minutes and you're doing 15 minutes. And then the next week, 20 minutes, so on. That would be a gradual change. Another example is chunking it. So breaking up the task into smaller chunks. So for example, if your action is to complete assignments, you might break it up into chunks to say, okay, I'm going to work on assignments 30 minutes a day. Or if you want to become an expert on a certain topic, you might say, I'm going to spend 20 minutes a day on this, learning about this topic.
Horacio, I have to jump out to the other session. I've made you the host so that you can keep going with them.
Awesome.
And so guys, I put a note here about the survey, and in the promo code of the survey, put the word why, and that will enter you to win a gift card. But Mr. Rodriguez also has stuff to give you. So stay with him because he's going to tell you how you guys can win stuff from him. Okay. And then when you're finished with him, you can jump back to the last session, or we can just see you tomorrow for tomorrow's sessions. Okay. So really, really glad that you all were here. Thank you so much, Mr. Rodriguez, for being here.
Cool. Thank you, Ms. Livingston.
All right. Happy Friday, you guys.
Cool. So we're almost done. Just hang with me for 5 more minutes, and I'll, like Ms. Livingston said, I have some goodies for you at the end, and then I'll stick around if you all have questions. And then step 4 is thinking about, once you've decided on what action it is and what approach you're going to do it, make that plan and just start, right? And just remember, no matter how small that action seems, you're taking action. And so focus on that you are taking action. And if you mess up, be loving to yourself, be compassionate, and be patient with yourself. So it's okay. Just go back to where you left off. So I want to leave you all with this. Try something. your future self will love you for whatever small steps you take. So no matter how small it seems now, I promise you your future self will love you for those small steps that you took. So again, thank you all for being here. Appreciate you all being here. Thank you.